My name is Rogena Angeli. I am 70 years old. And when I was a young girl, my mother used to send me away on the summers to my Uncle Alan's or my other uncle's house, Uncle Owen and Aunt Esther, and we used to put in tobacco in the summer. We spent every summer standing around a tobacco cart. The men would go out in the field and pick the tobacco and put it in this cart that had like feed sack sides to it. And when they filled it up, they put the sides up and filled it up so that all the tobacco was just piled inside, and 3 women stood on each side and sometimes one at each end. And we would take a handful of tobacco and hand it to a lady. There was a lady on each side that you handed the tobacco to, and she'd take it and wrap a string around it and tie it to a stick. The sticks were 4 feet long or so, 1 by 1s. And we'd empty the cart, and as you empty the cart, you'd lower the sides. They were cloth, so you could lower them and the tobacco wouldn't fall out. And we'd stand around, and in the morning the guys would come by, and probably the owner of the tobacco would come by and say, "Okay, ladies, what would you like to have for your snack this morning?" And he'd go to the store and buy us a orange crush or a Pepsi or a moon pie or an RC Cola.
What was your favorite?
Honey bun. My favorite was Lance crackers and probably a Pepsi. Sometimes I liked RC Colas. And then in the evening, the men would come in, and they would hang the tobacco. As the women tied it on the sticks, we'd lay it in a pile next to us. And in the evening, the men would come in, and they'd climb up in the tobacco barn and hand these sticks up and fill the tobacco barn from the top to the bottom. And then Uncle Alan would light a fire in the barn, and for 3 days he would cook the tobacco.
They cook it? You mean, what is that dries it out?
And then they would take it down out of the tobacco barn and put it in the curing house. And it stayed in there for a few months, I think. About 3 months. And I was the only other woman that ever climbed up in the barn to hang the tobacco was Aunt Thelma, Uncle Alan's wife. And I was the second one.
Oh.
As a teenager. The last year I worked there, I climbed up in the barn and helped them hang the tobacco.
So who did they sell the tobacco to?
Tobacco companies.
I mean, just whoever? Or?
American. That's where you hear the auctioneer sold American.
Right.
That's tobacco.
So they
have them in, they cure it in the house, and then they take it to Greenville or Raleigh or wherever.
Where was all this? Where was your farm?
North Carolina, on the coast, Swansboro.
Okay.
Lots of tobacco fields. When you first go, you start off by suckering the tobacco because it grows really tall.
What does that mean?
And in the top of it, it'll get extra sprouts. Well, you don't want that, so you go along and
you pull that off.
Little suckers come out, and you break those off. And then as it ripened, they picked it from the bottom up. It ripened from the bottom up.
Oh, they pick the leaves off?
They'd pick a few leaves one day, and then they'd go back next week and pick a few more leaves.
When's the season? What months? Or month? Or
the heat of the summer. July, August.
So how long a thing? Oh, so
I stayed there all summer.
So, and what ages? How old were you? When you started, how old were you?
I was probably 11 or 12. My first year I went. And my last year I was 15, because as soon as I could get a Social Security card, I never went back to put in tobacco again.
Because you got a job doing something else?
Because the last summer I worked, I was just so excited about getting paid. And then I found out after I worked all summer that I didn't get paid till they sold the tobacco.
Oh.
And then finally they sold the tobacco, and I got paid $1 a day. $90 for the whole summer.
Wow. Every year or every summer?
No, I didn't get paid. I never got paid the other years before. Mother must have
because you had
money.
a Social Security number? You got paid? Is that why?
No, that year I said, "Where's my..." And Mother got that money, actually. I didn't get it. But what I got paid was $90 for the summer.
So you said, forget it.
I said, I ain't going back up there again. I got myself a job.
And what'd you do?
went to work in a department store, and Jacksonville department store. My first paycheck was $25 a week, and I took home $19.95 every week. That's how much it made.
What year was that?
Well, I was 16. What, you figure it. I'm 70 now.
Where were you? What year were you born?
38.
Okay.
And I worked at Jacksonville department store in every department. I learned how to cut material. I learned how to. I worked in the yardage department. Really, it was my main. I learned about thread and needles.
Yeah, all the material.
And
did you enjoy that?
Oh, I loved it. Yes.
Did you sew?
I took sewing in high school, but I didn't sew.
A lot.
No, I can still sew, but I don't sew.
Yeah.
And then Mother had dress shops, and I used to work in learners' stores. Mother was a manager in a learner's store. And so as I got older, I worked, sewed clothes, and after school I'd work.
What was your best job, the job you enjoyed the most of all your jobs?
Oh, I don't know. I've always liked my jobs.
You like doing them all. They're all good.
Yeah, yeah. If I didn't, I've always liked my jobs.
Tell us about the job you just, you just did yesterday, or,
Oh, the hauling job. That job?
Yeah, you're...
Yesterday we had a job to go clean up. Actually, it's where Pete's working. And they've been put in windows, and windows come in cardboard with little wooden blocks to keep the windows from breaking, I guess. And because we do recycling, each one of these boxes they were all flattened, but each one of them had about 6 or 8 little wooden blocks that had to come off for us to recycle the cardboard. So at first we were ripping them because we couldn't find anything to cut them with. And then Vern showed up with another truck, and we had a knife, a utility knife. And I'd slit them down and throw the wood aside and throw the cardboard, and Jesse would put the cardboard in the truck.
And so, you just had surgery on your wrist, like, what, 6 months ago?
4.
4 months ago.
4 months.
You broke your wrist.
Yes.
So,
but my wrist is fine.
So you're pretty good, active.
I'm very active.
And you're pretty healthy because, that keeps you pretty healthy when you're active like that.
Yes.
Do you have some advice?
And then yesterday afternoon, Vern has gone to get PT for his shoulder replacement, and
oh yeah,
this guy that always gives him firewood, which he likes to sell, calls and says, "Rogena, is Vern there? If he'd bring the truck up here, we could get this firewood off." Somebody's giving him a bunch of firewood. If Vern could bring the truck up here. And I said, "Well, I can. I'll have to go to the dump." So I take the truck and I go to the dump and dump it, and then I go to the job, and the workers there loaded the truck up, and I brought it home.
So, Rogena, you're a can-do kind of gal.
I am.
Can you give us some advice to the youth of America?
There's nothing you can't do because you're a girl.
I love it.
Unless you're just not strong enough. But that's the only thing that...
A lot of it's attitude, isn't it, don't you think?
Absolutely. Well, and I also think I grew up in a household with no father. And I was the most capable of doing things at home. So that's how I learned.
Okay.
I learned how to carpenter with a high heel shoe and a butter knife. That was our screwdriver, and the high heel shoe was our hammer. We didn't have... Mother had one of those little metal hammers that, that the handle screws off, and there's little screwdrivers inside.
Yeah.
That was our hammer in the house. That was when we got rich. Before that, we just used a high heel shoe.
Well, on that note, I'm just going to close. That's great. Thanks for sharing a bit of your story. I loved it.
Oh, yes.
Okay, bye.
Bye.